Welcome to A Philosophy of Action. Today I want to talk about pensions and how they will not be able to sustain anyone in the near future to at least the midterm future. And the reason is simple: demographic collapse. We are not having nearly enough children to replace our working population, and we haven't had for some time. At the same time, the amount of elderly in the population is increasing massively. This will eventually put so much strain on the economy that nothing will function anymore. And, well, there will be massive economic and social consequences of this. And specifically, I want to talk about pensions in this case. For the elderly themselves, why this is relevant to them. Why do they care? They'll be dead by the time those problems show up. Or they'll be retired by the time those problems show up. And they have their own pensions, so they'll be fine. However, no pension system will work. And I'll show that to you now. Countries like the Netherlands often believe they're safe because they operate a fully funded pension system. That means retirees are supposedly just getting back the money they themselves paid in, rather than relying on transfers from current workers, as in pay-as-you-go systems. Common in Southern Europe. Those systems will hit harder, yes, but the truth is that both systems ultimately fail under demographic collapse. Why? Because pensions are not fundamentally about money, they are about labor. Even the most extreme cases make it obvious. South Korea currently is one of the lowest birth rates ever recorded, but Western European countries are not far behind. If you look at birth rates on screen, you might think some nations are doing fine, but they're not. People often respond to this by saying, but more people are being born than are dying. That statement is technically correct, but economically meaningless when it comes to the aging population. What matters is not births versus deaths. What matters is how many people are entering the workforce versus people that are leaving it. If 100 people turn 18 and 200 people turn 65, the working population shrinks. After all, 200 people are leaving, but only 100 people are entering. And so the elderly population increases, or at least the working population decreases in relation to the elderly population. Even if births exceed deaths, this is still a problem. That is what population aging actually means. Yet I have genuinely heard economists argue that aging has peaked simply because births are higher than deaths. That is fundamentally misunderstanding of the problem. Why does even a fully funded pension system fail? Because money does not create labor. You can have a pension account full of euros, but the euros do not grow food, do not build houses, do not maintain infrastructure, and do not provide healthcare. At some point, every pension promise reduces to one question: who is going to do the work? People often say, I don't need to worry about old age. The state will take care of me. And I always ask the same question to them: who's going to take care of the state and of you? Who's going to do the actual work? Who's going to work the farms? Who's going to stock the groceries? Who is going to build houses, maintain machines, or provide elderly care? When asked this, people usually repeat the same answer: the state will handle it. But how? Who's going to do the work? If you do not produce children, you do not produce future workers. If no one has children, there is no labor force to support anyone, no matter how much money exists on paper. Some people suggest immigration as the solution. Even ignoring cultural and political consequences, the economic logic still collapses. If immigrants become 80 or 90% of the workforce, why would they permanently accept these economic transfers from themselves to the elderly population? They have no generational stake in supporting them. There's no economic or moral mechanism that will guarantee any kind of arrangement like this holding. They will most likely just stop taking care of the elderly and use the infrastructure. Why vote for anything in favor of the elderly of the population that is in no way related to them? And this is where the healthcare exposes the problem most clearly. As population ages, the demand for healthcare will explode. At the same time, the supply of healthcare workers will collapse. When demand rises and supply falls, prices do not increase by 10 or 20%, they skyrocket. At that point, even a very generous pension becomes completely meaningless. You might receive 3,000 euros a month, which most people won't. But if healthcare costs explode, money buys almost nothing for you, even if the pension fund is technically fully funded. The real value of that money collapses because labor simply does not exist. This is why every pension system in an aging society eventually fails. There is no financial reform that fixes a demographic problem. The only real outcome are these. Either elderly become poor and we just cut them completely off from their pensions, or we give them their existing pensions but they won't pay for anything anyway, so they will be poor and destitute. Or the working population is crushed under transfers, or the democratic system will break because elderly voters vote endlessly in their own interest. Or authoritarian measures are introduced to override that dynamic, coming back to the first problem, where the elderly will presumably be made poor in order to save the rest of society. Mass immigration is also a solution, but it's unsustainable. Magical automation might work, but no one knows. And even machines require people to build and maintain them. None of these options seem very good. The least destructive option, the only one that actually addresses the root cause, is to have more children and stop the demographic decline that started all this. That doesn't fix the problem overnight, but over 10 or 20 years, it stabilizes the system instead of making it worse. If nothing changes, pension systems will not just fail, they will become meaningless. And if things change radically, no one knows what comes next. I hope we choose the least destructive path. That's it. Have a good one.